Why is it that some people seem to wither in the face of life's difficulties, while others, faced with the very same pressures, the same tragedies, the same chaos, somehow find a way to endure, and not just endure, but to become stronger? It's a question that haunts the quiet moments of our lives. We see it all around us. The friend who gets a bad diagnosis and collapses into despair, and another who fights with strength we never knew they possessed. The colleague who gets laid off and spirals, and another who uses it as a catalyst to build something new, something of their own. What is the difference? It isn't luck. It isn't that life is inherently kinder to some than to others. The rain, as they say, falls on the just and the unjust alike. The difference lies in something deeper, something internal. It's a question about meaning. In a world that often feels random, chaotic, and fundamentally unfair, where we find a kind of meaning that can serve as a bulwark against the suffering that is an inseparable part of life. This isn't an academic question. For many of us, it is a central, defining struggle of our existence. We feel a profound sense of drift, a lack of purpose that leaves us vulnerable, anxious, and resentful. We look for answers in fleeting pleasures and ideologies and the approval of others, but the foundation always seems to be made of sand. We are taught to pursue happiness. But happiness is a butterfly. It lands on your shoulder when you least expect it, and flutters away the moment you try to grasp it. So what, then, are we supposed to pursue? This feeling of being lost, of being overwhelmed by the complexity and pain of existence, is the starting point of our journey today. It's a journey into the work of a man who didn't just ponder this question academically, but who became utterly possessed by it, who descended into the depths of history, mythology, psychology, and neuroscience to find a real, tangible answer. That man is Jordan Peterson, a clinical psychologist who spent decades listening to the stories of people wrestling with this exact problem, and who saw in their struggles, and in his own, the echoes of humanity's oldest stories. He sought not a simple self-help platitude, but an antidote to chaos itself, a set of principles grounded in the bedrock of reality. To truly understand the weight of the principles he uncovered, you have to understand where he came from. You have to picture the world that forged his mind. Imagine growing up in Fairview, a small, isolated town in northern Alberta, Canada. A place where the winters are long, dark, and brutally cold. A place on the edge of the wilderness, where the border between order and chaos isn't an abstract concept. It's a tree lean at the edge of town. It was a place where you learned that life was serious, that reality was unforgiving, and that your survival depended on your competence and your fortitude. It was here that a young Peterson became acutely aware of the fragility of the systems that hold our world together. This wasn't just a boy's idle fear. It was a suffocating reality of the Cold War. He was obsessed, terrified, by the knowledge that two great powers held the entire world hostage, that civilization, as we knew it, could be annihilated in an instant by the press of a button. He had recurring nightmares of nuclear apocalypse. This wasn't just about politics. It was a visceral confrontation with the human capacity for evil and self-destruction on an unimaginable scale. He asked himself a terrible question. How could human beings have created a situation so insane, so utterly nihilistic? This question drove him to study history, to understand the ideologies of the 20th century, fascism, communism, that had led to the deaths of tens of millions of people. He wanted to understand the psychology of the concentration camp guard, of the Gulag administrator, of the ordinary person who participates in atrocity. He realized that the line between good and evil doesn't run between nations or groups, but cuts directly to the heart of every single individual. The potential for that same darkness, he concluded, lay dormant within him, within all of us. This terrifying realization shaped his entire career. When he became a clinical psychologist, he wasn't just treating disorders. He was seeing the timeless drama of the human soul play out in his office every single day. He saw clients consumed by anxiety, crippled by depression, and eaten alive by resentment that poisoned everything they touched. He saw people whose lives were so chaotic that they couldn't establish the simplest of routines. He saw others who were so rigidly ordered that any deviation from their plan sent them into a panic. He saw, again and again, that the fundamental problem wasn't just about brain chemistry or childhood trauma. Though those things mattered, the fundamental problem was a crisis of meaning. His clients were suffering truly and deeply because they had no reason to bear their suffering. They had no great, why it gave him the strength to endure life's howl. Their lives were a boat without a rudder, tossed about on a stormy sea. And he realized that this was not a new problem. It was the oldest human problem. It was the story of Adam and Eve being cast out of the walled garden of paradise and into the harsh wilderness of reality. It was the story of Cain, consumed by resentment, murdering his brother Abel. These weren't just dusty old myths. They were psychological roadmaps, describing the eternal human struggle to create habitable order out of the terrifying chaos of potential. His quest was no longer just academic. It was a moral imperative. He had to find a practical, real-world answer to the question. In the face of life's inherent suffering and chaos, how does an individual build a life of meaning? The first breakthrough came not from a complex philosophical text, but from observing one of nature's most ancient and surprisingly relevant creatures, the lobster. This might sound strange, even comical, but the truth it reveals is profound. For hundreds of millions of years, long before there were trees, let alone human beings, lobsters have been navigating a world of social hierarchy and territorial dispute. When two lobsters meet, they have to negotiate for resources, the best shelter, the best food. They engage in a ritualistic conflict. First, they posture, puffing themselves up, waving their claws, trying to look big and intimidating. If that doesn't settle it, the conflict escalates until, eventually, a physical fight breaks out. One lobster wins, and the other loses. And here is where it gets fascinating. The aftermath of that single battle chemically alters both creatures. The winner's brain chemistry changes. Its serotonin levels rise, while dopamine, the invertebrate equivalent of adrenaline, falls. It becomes more confident and more cocky. It stands up taller. Its posture is more erect, and it's far more likely to initiate and win its next fight. The loser, however, experiences the opposite. Its serotonin plummets, and its dopamine spikes. Its posture literally droops. It becomes timid, stressed, and is far more likely to back down and lose its next fight. A single defeat can send it into a downward spiral. What Peterson realized is that this ancient neurological circuit, this serotonin-fueled feedback loop that governs posture, confidence, and social status, is still active deep within our own brains. It's a primordial calculator that is constantly monitoring where we stand in the eyes of others. When we feel defeated, when we are rejected, when we fail, our internal status monitor registers a loss. Our serotonin levels can dip. We begin to stoop. We hunch our shoulders. We avoid eye contact. We literally make ourselves smaller, just like the defeated lobster. This posture isn't just a consequence of feeling bad. It's part of a self-perpetuating cycle. A slumped posture signals defeat, not only to others, but to our own nervous system. It tells our brain, I am low status. I am a loser. I should be cautious and anxious. And the world, sensing the signal, tends to treat us accordingly, reinforcing the feeling of defeat. This is the origin of Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. It is not a hollow platitude about faking it till you make it. It is a direct, physical intervention into that ancient feedback loop. By consciously adopting the posture of a winner, pulling your shoulders back, lifting your chin, speaking clearly, making eye contact, you're sending a powerful signal back to your own brain. You are telling that ancient calculator that you are competent, that you are prepared to face the world, that you are willing to accept the challenge of life. This can actually begin to change your brain chemistry, encouraging higher serotonin levels, which in turn reduces anxiety and increases confidence. It's a way of short-circuiting the downward spiral of defeat. It is a decision to voluntarily embody the archetype of the hero, the person who confronts chaos and prevails. Standing up straight is a declaration that despite the suffering and uncertainty of life, you refuse to be a victim. You are accepting your position in the world and signaling your readiness to engage with it, to bear its burdens, and to strive for something noble. It is the first, most fundamental step in turning chaos into order, starting with the physical vehicle you inhabit. But standing tall, while essential, is not the whole story. It prepares you to face the challenges you choose. But what about the challenges that choose you? What about the suffering that descends upon you arbitrarily? The kind that no amount of confident posture can ward off. A terrible illness, the betrayal of a loved one, the tragic loss of a child. These are not dominance hierarchy games that can be won with a surge of serotonin. This is the brutal, malevolent aspect of reality crashing into your life, threatening to shatter your world into a million pieces. This complication reveals a deeper, more difficult truth. Simply embodying strength is not enough when the foundations of your being are shaken. This led Peterson to a second, more profound principle, born from perplexing observation he made again and again in his clinical practice. He noticed that his clients were often astonishingly bad at taking care of themselves. He would prescribe a medication, and they wouldn't fill the prescription. Or they would fill it, but they wouldn't take the pills. Yet, these very same people would move heaven and earth to care for their pets. If their dog was sick, they would remember the medication, administer with precise timing, and shower the animal with love and care. Why this paradox? Why are we so often better at offering compassion and care to others, even to our animals, than we are to ourselves? The answer, he discovered, is deeply unsettling. It's because we are intimately aware of our own flaws. We know our own weaknesses, our deceptions, our resentments, our cowardice. We know all the ways we have failed ourselves and others. We see our own fallibility, our own capacity for evil laid bare. And because of this, deep down, a part of us feels unworthy of care. We feel like we don't deserve it. We look at a pet, and we see its innocent, blameless nature. We look in the mirror, and we see a creature burdened by a history of mistakes and moral failings. This self-contempt is a poison. It allows us to neglect ourselves in ways we would never tolerate for someone we truly cared about. This is the basis for Rule 2. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. This is a radical proposition. It's not about self-esteem or positive affirmations. It's about accepting a duty of care for yourself, just as you would for a beloved child, a cherished parent, or a dependent pet. It means looking at yourself with all your flaws and inadequacies and deciding that you are nonetheless a being of value, a locus of consciousness whose well-being is a moral necessity. It means asking yourself not what you want in the moment, but what would be genuinely good for you. What would a person who truly cared for you want for you? They would want you to take your medication. They would want you to eat properly, to get enough sleep, to avoid people who demean you, and to pursue goals that are noble and worthwhile. This rule forces a profound shift in perspective. It moves you from being a critic and judge of yourself to being a steward of your own being. It requires you to make a pact with your future self, to make small sacrifices in the present for a much greater good down the road. It means negotiating with yourself, not tyrannizing yourself. You don't have to eat cake all day, but you also don't have to eat nothing but broccoli. You have to find the balance, the regimen that makes you stronger, healthier, and more productive tomorrow and next week and next year. It is an act of profound responsibility, a recognition that your life matters, and that you have a sacred obligation to nurture potential within you, not out of selfish desire, but out of a duty to bring the best version of yourself into the world. This is where the two threads begin to weave together into something truly powerful. Standing up straight with your shoulders back is the act of preparing yourself to face the chaos of the world. Treating yourself like someone you are responsible for helping is the act of building the strong, ordered internal foundation that makes that confrontation possible. They are two sides of the same coin, and together they point to the grand, unifying idea at the heart of Peterson's work. The aha moment is this: meaning is not something you find. It is something you forge, and it is forged in the crucible of responsibility. Life is a constant, dynamic interplay between two fundamental forces, order and chaos. Order is a known world, your routines, your relationships, your culture, the predictability of your life. It is stability, security, and structure. But too much order becomes tyranny, stagnation, and creative death. Chaos, on the other hand, is the unknown. It's the unexpected event, the new idea, the place you've never been. It is a realm of potential, of novelty, and of growth. But too much chaos is overwhelming. It is anxiety, uncertainty, and dissolution. We live our lives on the knife's edge between these two great forces. A meaningful life is not one spent cowering in the walled city of order, nor is it one spent wandering lost in the terrifying wilderness of chaos. A meaningful life is lived on the border, on the frontier between the two. And the way you walk that line is by voluntarily confronting chaos and turning it into habitable order. This is the ultimate synthesis. Standing up straight is the physical and psychological posture of someone who says yes to that challenge. Treating yourself with care is the discipline that makes you strong enough for the journey. The ultimate antidote to the suffering and malevolence of life isn't happiness. It's meaning. And meaning is found in picking up the heaviest burden you can carry and bearing it voluntarily. It's about looking at the chaos in your own life, the disorganization in your room, the resentments in your heart, the lies you tell yourself, and deciding to confront it. You don't start by trying to fix the world. That's an act of arrogance that almost always leads to ruin. You start with yourself. You clean your room, both literally and metaphorically. You take responsibility for the small corner of the world that is uniquely yours. In doing so, you take a piece of chaos and you turn it into order. That act, that small victory, makes you stronger. It gives you the competence and the confidence to take on a slightly larger piece of chaos, perhaps in your family, then in your community. This is a path of meaning. It is the way of the hero in every great myth. The hero is the one who leaves the village, goes out into the dark forest, confronts the dragon of chaos, secures a treasure, and brings it back to enrich the community. We all have dragons to slay, and most of them reside within us. The meaning that sustains us through suffering is the knowledge that we are engaged in this noble, creative battle against the forces that would otherwise destroy us. So, the journey we've taken through these ideas is not just an intellectual exercise. It's a map. It's a map that begins with the recognition of life's inherent difficulty, acknowledges our own capacity for self-neglect, and ultimately points toward a path of profound, difficult, and transformative purpose. The blueprint is deceptively simple. It doesn't require a grand gesture or a sudden miraculous change. It starts with the smallest possible steps in your own life, right now. It begins with a decision to stop waiting for the world to be fair, to stop wishing for a life free of pain, and to instead accept the challenge that has been placed before you. It starts with a physical act of standing up straight, of pulling your shoulders back and facing the world with courage you may not even feel yet. It continues with a moral decision to treat yourself with the same care and respect you would offer to someone you deeply loved, to take responsibility for your own well-being as a sacred duty. From there, you aim low. You look at your life and ask, what is one thing I could do, that I would do, to make things just a little bit better? Maybe it's making your bed in the morning. Maybe it's finally making that difficult phone call. Maybe it's committing to telling the truth for one full day. Each small act of responsibility is a victory. It's a brick you lay in the foundation of a new life, a life of meaning and substance. This isn't about finding happiness. It's about building the strength to endure suffering. It's about discovering that the deepest meaning is found not in avoiding the storm, but in becoming the kind of person who can navigate it. This is a journey you have to take for yourself, but you don't have to take it alone. If this story, this map, resonates with you, then I invite you to make a commitment, not to me, but to yourself. Subscribe to this channel and join a community of people who are also striving to confront chaos, to bear responsibility, and to build more meaningful lives, one small, courageous act at a time. Because understanding these principles is the first step, but the real transformation happens when you decide to live them. You have a choice. You can be a critic of the broken world, or you can be a hero in your own story, creating order one brave step at a time.